welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Preview Podcast. It's been 3 defeats in a row for Sunderland, and that's piled the pressure on Sunderland. And of course, Phil Parkinson's pressure has absolutely ramped up to the, I would say, boiling point. However, it doesn't get much easier for Sunderland this weekend as we'll face a solid and steady Doncaster Rovers side away from home. And to discuss this weekend's game with myself is Adam from Doncaster fan site Into the Empty Net. How are you doing, Adam? Are you all right?
I'm all right, thank you, Graham.
Unbeknown to the internet, we've spoken about 4 times previously, haven't we?
Indeed, yes. It's one thing or another. It's just never got out there to the world, has it?
It hasn't, but unbeknown to everyone listening to this, they think we're strangers. We're actually best mates. Best ever. Well, you're my favourite Doncaster fan, but you're my only one, so I don't know if it's a backhanded compliment. But we'll go straight into it. Darren Moore is a guy that I really like as a person. I think he's a really good manager. He's been in charge for, you could say, a good spell of time, especially in modern day. Currently has you in 10th, but what are Donny fans making of Darren Moore at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much universally popular around these parts. Since he came in as manager, he's done a great job, really fostered a positive attitude around the club, I suppose. All of the players really seem to buy into his philosophies. We play good football, which I think for the fans, I know most clubs will be the same, but ever since Sean O'Driscoll's days in charge, I think the fans have kind of demanded and expected a certain standard of football, at least for this level. And, managers before who've not met that, people like Paul Dickov and at times Darren Ferguson, I suppose, it's been easy to get on their backs, but Darren Moore, his sides try and play football the right way. It tries to be attacking, but also sensible and pragmatic. It's not to the detriment of defence. And obviously Darren was a defender himself. He's been here a year and a bit now, and I can't think of any real bad spells. We were a little bit inconsistent, I think, at best of times. But, in terms of Darren Moore, his attitude, his playing style, everything he brings in is great. And he's certainly got the ear of a lot of top clubs, to get them young players in on loan. He's come through the academy system as a coach himself. So that's a big benefit as well. I think players often, they do want to come and play for him.
Yeah, and I think, I think a lot of people, when you mention the name Darren Moore, maybe in the whole spectrum of things, maybe not League One people, Championship fans, Premiership fans will look at what he did at West Brom, and I think people were quite surprised he got sacked from there. And although West Brom went on and got promoted under Bilic, I think West Brom, when he was in charge, was a bit different. So he came with a good pedigree anyway, quite surprising sacking. Do you worry that you might lose him anytime soon, or do you think he's here for the long haul?
Yeah, I mean, I think any manager that has that kind of reputation, especially from a higher level, he spent most of his playing career in Championship and in Premier League. Yeah, it's always a worry, and I think a few jobs have come up recently that we've thought, maybe he'll get a look in there. Sheffield Wednesday, I know Derby jobs available at the minute. He used to play for Derby, but the thing with Darren is he really seems to buy into the whole club philosophy, and when he joined, he really talks up the Club Doncaster model that we've got, where we're integrated with the rugby team and with the women's team. And because Darren was here for a player in the 90s as well, as a spell, he knows the town, he knows the area. He was happy to come and move up here as well from where he was based down in Birmingham. So in terms of Darren himself, I would have no worries about him staying for the project for the long term. Obviously, his ability is the only thing that might take him away, is that he is that well sought after, I think, and well thought of in football in this country, that eventually a team might come in with an offer that he can't refuse, and that would be fair enough, I suppose, as long as they are, an upwardly mobile club doing things the right way and, probably in the Championship, then, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he went. He's probably the first manager we've had since O'Driscoll, really. I know Dean Saunders went to Wolves and left us, but first manager since O'Driscoll where we are regularly thinking, well, he might end up being too good for his end. But yeah, for now, he seems pretty happy.
Last time I said that about a manager, the scary thing for you lot listening in is that I said that to the Swindon fan about Richie Willens. I said, is he going to go, somewhere higher up? And he ended up going to Salford about 2 weeks later. So hopefully for you lot, I haven't cursed you, fingers crossed. But no, you know what? I think Darren Moore, from the outside looking in, seems like he's doing a good job. And I think the big thing for me was that he's lost key players every year. So I suppose my question would be, from the outside looking in, you lost Marquise, obviously went, in my opinion, a bit of a sideways move in the end to Portsmouth. Kieran sadly has gone to Rotherham. I think his contract was up. How was it? And first question is, why is it Doncaster keep losing key players?
Well, I think that's more on the club philosophy than Darren's. You know, under Darren Ferguson, we had a bit of a policy of trying to really encourage the academy players coming through, and we give them long-term deals. And to be honest, none of them worked out. Liam Mandeville got a 3-year deal, and he ended up burning out. He's in non-league now. I think he's at Chesterfield. We had a couple of other players. I won't even bother mentioning the names, to be honest. No offence to them, but they're not even in. They're not even in the National League level now, you know. And we give them 2-3-year deals, and they're just taking up money on the wage budget, really, aren't they? And I think that kind of scared the club off a little bit. And even before the current times, you know, we had to look at more of a 1 year with an option or 2-year contract model. You know, Kieran Sadlier was a big example of where that can trip you up. Last season, you know, he signed an 18-month deal when he signed. He signed in January 2019, and we offered him a new deal halfway through last season. He just kept dragging his feet with it. You know, he knew that he was one of our best players. He knew that he would be sought after. We were a bit smarting, I suppose, when we went to Rotherham because they're a local rival. Understand that they're a championship club. But that is probably the main reason for that. John Mark was a little bit different. I think that's a classic case of a player outgrowing the club a little bit. You know, teams like Portsmouth, teams like Sunderland, we know came in for him, have got that money they can offer, and we are not in a position to turn down £1-2 million for players regularly. I mean, we have done that with Ben Whiteman this summer, but yeah, I think there's an understanding for any manager that comes into Doncaster that players probably aren't going to stick around long term if they are very good players, because unless we can get into the Championship, the top players in our team are going to be snapped up by sides like that, sides like Rotherham and teams like Portsmouth, who are, you know, capable of moving into the Championship probably a little easier than we are, which is nothing against us, our level or anything, but I don't think anyone really begrudged Marquis moving. And sadly, as I say, going to Rotherham were a bit unfortunate, but again, understandable. And I don't think there's any problem with our contract model. 2 years, 3 years every now and then. Can't think of a single player other than Ben Whiteman who's got a 3-year deal. Yeah, it's just a case of managing expectations in that regard, I think.
Talking about like losing players, the second part of my question was going to be, despite whoever you lose, and I know it's gone 6th to like, I think 8th last year or 10th, and then 10th this year. For the players that you lost in the overhaul that you had, because you lost more than just Marquis last year, how good is the recruitment team in getting players in that can, because you're still in with a chance of playoffs since you've lost your big players, you never drop really far down. You're always there or thereabouts. So how good is the recruitment model, and who's responsible for that?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? You know, we've got a bit of a next man up attitude. It's changed a lot the last few years, the recruitment, because we've had quite a turnover of managers, not through sackings, just through them moving on or whatever. When Darren Moore came in, I think we kind of reassessed, went further down the road, as I was on about, with the 2-year contract model, and we brought in Adam Henshaw as our head of recruitment from Shrewsbury.
Yeah,
and he'd got players, a good knack for getting young players on loan there that have ended up going on to better things. Lewis, is it Lewis? Oh, I can't remember his name. You know, the Welsh. No, Daniel James. Sorry,
Daniel James. Yes,
at Manchester United now. Yes, got him on loan. They got Dean Henderson on loan at Shrewsbury. A couple of players like that who, you know, obviously making their first steps in professional football and have now gone on to being internationals.
Yeah.
So he's brought a bit of that to the table. I think Darren has got the knowledge and the contacts himself through his experience in the game at the top level. We tend to look at younger players. We do go into the loan market, but it's for players with a very good reputation. Players like Tyrese John-Jules from Arsenal. He's made a good start this season. Josh Sims is coming on loan from Southampton. Matt Smith from Man City. Again, young players, 20 to 21 years old, but players who have clearly got that ability and are expecting to be playing in the top 2 leagues in the years to come. When we lose players, it is just a case of finding a suitable person who can come in, whether that's just on loan for the year, whether it's on a permanent deal, and kind of try and rebuild the squad that way. And we've got used to it. It's been 2, 3, 4 seasons in a row now where the summer is involved, big turnover of players, bringing in just about a dozen new players. Last season it worked. We lost quite a good chunk of the team that got to the playoffs. You know, Marquis left. We lost players like Andy Butler. I know he's back now.
Downing went as well, didn't he? Was it Downing that went?
Downing, yeah, he went to Portsmouth as well.
When we're talking about recruitment, you talked about like the loan players that you brought in, but that's been a successful model for you for a while, because Herbie Kane was one of your better players. I mean, I think for a long time at Sunderland, we were quite good with bringing in the likes of Alonso, Welbeck, Danny Rose in the Premiership. But it would get frustrating because then those players would leave and go on to bigger and better things. That happens sometimes to yourself, but do you think that the loan model is to be used correctly in this division? Do you think Doncaster are a good model for how to use the loan system right?
Yes, I think so. It does divide fans. It divides our fans. I think every club wants their team to bring through your own players, local players. I think in the modern world, in the modern game, especially in League One and League Two, using the loan market intelligently is a way to really give yourself an extra, just a little kick, an extra boost. I'm not sure. Well, I know we wouldn't have made the playoffs 2 seasons ago if we didn't have those loan players. Malik Wilkes scored 15, 16 goals. Herbie Kane was superb in midfield. You don't have to fill your team with them, but if you get the right balance with it, and you get some real quality players in, I don't see the problem with the loan market. Getting a player on a 1 year loan from a Premier League team, it's not any different to me than getting a player on a 1 year permanent contract. It's
Yeah.
just the way things are now. I'm a fan of the loan system because we use it right. We bring in players with that quality. Grant McCann did a good job with it. Darren Moore's done an excellent job with it as well so far. Players that we've got this season like Sims and Matt Smith, they're excellent.
So when it comes to previous managers, you spoke about Gavin McCann, Grant McCann. Gavin McCann's obviously one of our former players. With Grant McCann, I remember when he went to Hull, and let's just say that really hasn't worked out for him at all. I didn't mean to stop you in your tracks there, but I'm kind of curious. What's Doncaster fans' opinions of Grant McCann now?
Oh, I mean, not good. Let's put it that way. He is not a popular man around here at all. It's a real shame because that year he had here, everybody really was galvanised. He was fantastic at whipping up the fans, and the way that we played was it was very like in your face, no fear style, which we're not used to really seeing. We've very always been pragmatic, patient football kind of thing. He did a great job that year, but the way that he left, the manner of his departure, really, really left a sour taste. And I think the main reason for that is because he didn't practice what he preached. As that summer was coming up to starting after the playoffs, he made a big song and dance about loyalty and wanting to be here, kind of thing. All those kind of things that managers say about players who were out of contract. Players like Danny Andrew went to Fleetwood. Andy Butler was one of them as well. He ended up at Scunthorpe. Marco Morosi left for Coventry. A lot of players who were out of contract who we'd offered new deals to. And Grant McCann was kind of publicly not slating them, I suppose, but kind of getting on at them and saying, well, if they don't want to be here, they can leave. And I want players who want to play for Doncaster. And he did make a big thing about Danny Andrew in particular leaving, saying that he didn't deserve the contract that we'd offered him, and basically, stuff you. And then 3-4 days after that was all over the press. Hull City had come in for him, and he was gone in a flash. So it left a very bad taste. A lot of Rovers fans call him the Snake. And I think many of us were looking forward to playing Hull this season if there were any fans in, because I think he'd probably get dogs abuse. We actually had a friendly lined up with them last summer when he just left, and they ended up changing the ticketing so that you could only buy tickets in the opposite stand to the dugout, because I think they anticipated him getting abuse or maybe even projectiles thrown at him. But he's not a popular man at all, and I think it's all down to the hypocrisy, I suppose. And so, whether you should have glee in another team's failure or not, a lot of us were very happy to see him fail miserably last season at Hull, but he's made a good start this year,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
he's done all right. He brought in a lot of because he signed Malik Wilkes, didn't he? He brought him
Yes.
in permanently and stuff like that. So because he nicked obviously George Honeyman from us and stuff like that. But I remember being surprised he did so badly. Then I looked at the players that he'd signed, and I was like, well, he's pretty much signed a League One team, so maybe it's not a surprise he's doing sort of all right this season. Back onto the team that you have at the moment. Obviously, there's been, like any League One team, a host of changes in the squad. You've already mentioned the three that have really stuck out for me. Josh Sims, obviously from Southampton, and Matt Smith has come in from City. I think John Jules is out injured on Saturday. But how good have
Yes.
those three been? Because they've come from Arsenal, City, Southampton, three big clubs realistically.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. We've only seen any of them for half a dozen games or so due to, we'd signed Sims and Smith late in the window, and John Jules unfortunately got injured. But they all just look a cut above, in my opinion. Players who've been schooled in those top academies, they've got that extra yard of pace, and they've got that extra bit about them intelligently on the ball and stuff. Bit more quality than really anyone who's not gone through those academies has got. They're just difference makers. He's come in, he got an assist on his debut, scored in the next game and another assist, and he's just kept it going. His pace is unbelievable for a player at this level, and he's not one of those rapid wingers where you just see them bombing up and down. It's just he sets off and he just has that extra yard that most players in this league, especially defenders, don't have. Smith has tied everything together really nicely in midfield. That was the last position we really needed to replace from last season. Ben Sheaf we had on loan. He was like
From
the
Arsenal
kind
as
of,
well, wasn't he? Ben
yeah,
Sheaf,
that's
yeah.
right. Kind of the holding midfielder, but he would switch very fluidly with Ben Whiteman in the roles. One would drop back, one would take the ball on further forward, and without the player to complement Whiteman for the first few games, we were a little bit lost in midfield because we only really had more attack-minded midfielders. And when Smith's come in, played alongside Whiteman, he's really just tied everything together really nicely, and he's also been able to get forward and contribute further forward. Scored against Wimbledon a couple of weeks ago. So they've just had that extra bit of quality. And again, as I said before, players that we wouldn't be able to get that kind of quality permanently. We wouldn't be able to find that kind of quality from other teams at this level. So to get players from Arsenal and Manchester City on loan, it's a big help. John Jules as well. He scored a fantastic goal at Charlton, and he just looks very good. He looks quality. Whether he can get fit again and get the goals will be another story, but we're definitely hopeful.
Talking of sort of players that you've brought in as well, I think I was going to ask who else there is to watch. I know for a fact James Coppinger will always have to be watched until he's about 75, because I think he's been playing since he was about 12 and he's now, what, 62, 63? But which other players should we be looking out for? Where is it that Doncaster you think could damage something? Because we are fragile. I've got to be honest, we are fragile at the moment.
I think it's a case of it'll be the midfield battle. I think if Ben Whiteman is allowed time and space on the ball to be the playmaker, I always compare him to an NFL quarterback because he stands back and he just sees the field exactly as you need to see it. His vision is fantastic. His distribution is brilliant. Very, very rarely does he put a foot wrong, put a pass astray, and he's chipped in with goals as well. I think he's our second top scorer this season with 4. If he is allowed time on the ball, and if we are as a team are allowed to get the ball to the flanks, I think we can really damage Sunderland. Our fullbacks like to push on, a lot of overlapping, a lot of underlapping as well. And again, the pace of Sims, the pace of John Taylor on the other side of the wing, that's going to be a problem, I think, for Sunderland. I'm trying to think back to last season, the games between the two sides. We tried it a bit differently at Stadium of Light, and we played through the middle a lot.
Horrendous game that. It was on Sky, wasn't it? Friday
yes,
night
it
on
was.
Sky.
Yes,
Terrible game. Horrendous.
I was at the game, and I just remember going in thinking we're going to get mullered here. I think you did a job on us in the Christmas game a few weeks before.
Great day out, fantastic day out. Yes, but then the Friday night was the best part about that night is I remember going to Domino's Pizza afterwards. That's the only thing about it. It was live on Sky and it was a typical 0-0, but
0-0.
But I think you sort of did a job on us that night as well, because we were bang on form at that point, and I think you were probably the better of the two sides, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, we did what we did. We changed it up because in the first game we were really overrunning midfield. I think it was whoever you had in midfield that day. I can't quite remember if it was it before Honeyman left or it might have been after.
It was after. So it would have been Power and Dobson maybe in the middle.
Dobson, that's the one. Yeah, it was Dobson. We left Ben Sheaf on the bench for the first time all season, and Dobson was able to just kind of take over in midfield. And then further forward, I think it was Gooch and maybe Maguire, who just had a bit of a field day because we were just overrun. So Darren Moore completely adjusted it for the return match. We put Reece James, who's a left back. Well, you know Reece James, of course. Put him in midfield, which we've started doing again this season. I think that was the only time we did it last season, but this season we've been putting Reece James in midfield a bit more, and he's just kind of changed it up. We've been a bit more sure defensively as we were in that game, and it kind of allowed our creative players a little bit more room to breathe in that match. I'm going to wonder if he might try something like that again. Maybe put Reece James in midfield on Saturday, try and give Maggi Gomez or James Coppinger a bit more room to work in. And if that it will come from midfield, I think, for us to answer your question plainly.
Yeah.
If our midfield can control the ball more often than not, then I think we can do some damage.
Has it made much of a difference you being at home or away this season? Because without having fans, I mean, Sunderland haven't lost haven't lost more than one home game this season since we've came down. We've already lost 2 and 3 if you include the cup game as well. So obviously, in my opinion, there is a difference there. People say we are easy to play against Sunderland at the Stadium Light. Evidently not, because we're not there and we've lost more. But are you noticing a difference with fans being there, or is every game just a game?
I think it's that. I think every game is just a match between two teams. Unless the weather plays havoc with it, really. The extra element of I'm just having a look at our results to just double check where we've been winning and losing. I think it's pretty even split, but we went to Charlton early on in the season, and there were actually fans at that game. It was one of the pilot games that they ran just before they decided
Oh
to
yeah,
stop us all going back. And obviously 1,000 Charlton fans in, and we annihilated them. We won 3-1, dominated. And whereas there's been home games as well where you look in the second half, we're not winning or we're losing, and you think, if they just had that extra bit for the crowd kind of egging them on or getting on the backs a bit more and telling them to get going, you might have seen an extra level from us. I think the lack of fans has completely nullified home and away as elements, which is a real shame. Also proves just how vital fans are
yeah.
to football in general. And the sooner we get us back in the grounds, I think the better. I don't really think there's been a difference. Ordinarily I'd be looking at Rovers away at Sunderland and saying, it'd be nice if we nick a draw. This season, if there's still no fans by the time we go to the stadium, I'll be saying it's just another game. It's just like
Yeah,
being at home.
it feels like that as well because no matter how loud I shout, and I've shouted quite a bit the past few weeks, they can't hear us, unfortunately, from up here in Scotland. On your sort of recent form, it's remarkably odd. I mean, I've looked at the results and you've got a 4-1 win over Ipswich, a 1-0 win at Portsmouth, a 1-0 win over Lincoln. So that sounds like brilliant. You should be in top six. But then you've got a 2-1 defeat at Plymouth, a 2-2 draw at Wimbledon, and a 2-1 home defeat at Crewe. So I've literally wrote here on my question, what's going on there? So I'm just asking that plainly.
We're all trying to work that one out. I've written a lot of words on my website this month and last month about that. The word I have to keep coming back to is consistency. In nearly every one of those games you've mentioned, we've played well. We've had a lot of chances, and we've either just not taken them, or it's just been a bit of bad luck sometimes. The Plymouth defeat, 2-1 away at Plymouth, was a really poor performance. 3 days after we lost at home to Crewe, in a game that we shouldn't have lost, we had loads of chances. I think we had 25 shots on goal. They had about 6. They won 2-1. 2 good goals, but it shouldn't be happening, really. Not as often as it is. We lost at Wigan. I don't think Wigan have won a game since. They're bottom of the league. And we had 5 or 10 really gilt-edged chances in that first half. Didn't take any of them, and then conceded a sloppy goal in the second half, lost 1-0. We seem to step up against the better teams. It seems once a game's settled in 10, 15 minutes, if the other team are playing good stuff and trying to get some football going, we're doing the same. We're like, all right, we can match you. Ipswich came to the Keepmoat, and I don't know if they took the lead or if it was maybe 1-1 in the first half, and we just took over and we just dominated and won 4-1. After the game started, we felt our way into the game and realised they were playing football. They were coming out and attacking us, and we could handle it. Teams that sit back, teams that kind of pack the defence and don't make mistakes, we're finding it really difficult to break them down. It was the same with Wimbledon, which was our last league game. Went behind twice against the run of play. I think Wimbledon had not had a shot on goal. We dominated 25 minutes. They took the lead. Good finish, but how is that happening? 1 chance, 1 goal. We're not taking our chances. Luckily, we nicked a draw in the last minute thanks to a deflected Coppinger shot. But it's frustrating. However, it's a young side. We're still kind of trying to find the best 11. And I think that kind of consistency in game management doesn't really come in that first month or 2 of the season. I don't find it usually does anyway for these sorts of teams. We've got 5 or 6 new players playing, and we've had a few injuries at key times that have meant we've not really had a consistent run of 11 playing either. And I think that may be part of it. Maybe playing Saturday, Tuesday every week nearly as well isn't helping.
But yeah, it's a weird season anyway as well, isn't it? Because it's like I think it was Eddie, a Gillingham fan I had on the other week, said it feels like a ghost season. But if you think of from the players' perspective, they had the best part of like 3 or 4 months off. They came back, and at this level as well, you've got a lot of people that could probably pinpoint across every side in the league that probably didn't know where their future was for a long time and were training by themselves. Yeah. So I suppose you've got to take that into account as well. But I mean, basically, you're a dozen games into the season. I think if you're classing all the games, including your league games, I think you've basically won half of them. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So if you could, how would you sum up the opening quarter of the season, like in terms of, are you positive moving forward? Is there anything that's concerning you that you hope doesn't turn into a problem on a regular basis? Or how would you sum it up?
I think it's been a decent start. I'm certainly more happy than not. I think we've got a lot of good pieces in place. Keeping players fit is going to be crucial because we don't have a massive squad.
Yeah.
We seem to be very short on wingers despite signing 3 or 4. They keep getting injured. The big concern for me would be up front. We've only got 2 strikers. One of them is John Jules. He's injured. Okenabiri, who has scored a few goals in patches. He's been a bit inconsistent. I think he don't know if he responded very well to being dropped at the start of the season when we signed John Jules, because it looked like, for all intents and purposes, he was a guaranteed starter, Rock Kennebery, but didn't turn out to be the case. Darren Moore isn't one for picking favourites, I don't think, and I think he struggled to really get into the rhythm of the season again once he started coming in off the bench and when he's won his place back. But he has got a couple of goals. I think he's got 5 now. It's a decent return.
Yeah.
So the concern would be if John Jules stays out or if Okenabiri drops form, then we're in a bit of trouble because we've not really got any academy strikers either. It would probably be a case of playing Coppinger up front just because he can do everything. But that'd be my main place of concern, would be getting in the goals if we can't keep everybody fit. Otherwise, I think we're in good shape. Unfortunately, with the way the season's been scheduled, late starting, extended window, we're only 5 or 6 weeks off the transfer window opening again. And that means our best players are going to be in demand again. You know, we fought off some measly bids from Barnsley for Ben Whiteman all summer. Will he go in January? Will there be more interest in Tom Anderson? Will we be able to keep Josh Sims, players like that? That's a concern for a month or 2 down the road. But if this squad stays together and enough of them stay fit, I think we'll be in for a good season.
In a well, I was going to say in a utopian world, but they don't exist, I guess. Because of how close you were to getting to Wembley a few years ago to play what would have been ourselves against Charlton, and also the way that you've performed and the certain individuals that you have, is Doncaster fans' aims to get into the playoffs? So is that kind of like top 10? Is that your aim? What is the aim at Doncaster?
I think fans are disappointed if we don't mount a proper playoff push now.
Yeah.
With the bulk of the last 10 to 15 years being spent in the Championship or competing at the top end of League One, there is now that kind of inbuilt expectation to be at least a top 10 side. I think certain things, circumstance, if we lose players, obviously the way things have gone this year, people won't get too mad if we're 7th, 8th, 9th. You know, no one was really too upset that we finished 9th last season as it ended up shaking out with the truncated season. But if we're meandering through mid-table, not having good football, not having wins regularly, I know it sounds simple, but you know that's when the fans do start to get annoyed. I think the club, from all the noises I hear, everything I read, the club aims to get into the Championship. There's no desperate rush to get there because we're well aware that there are some very big teams in this league now, like yourselves, like Ipswich, like Charlton, who are obviously always going to have bigger resources and more chance to get promoted. But it's a tough league. We know that we've got a chance. We proved 2 seasons ago, sneaking into 6th on the last day of the season, and very nearly knocking Charlton off. I mean, I personally think we would have had a good chance of winning at Wembley as well.
Against us, yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
yeah.
We don't win at Wembley, you would have gone up, so don't worry about that.
I did, not to bring up the Netflix documentary, but I did watch as that played out, thinking, it would have been great if this had been us. So I think there's an understanding with the fans that we should be able to compete for the playoffs every year. But if we miss out, if we come close like last season, but not quite, no one's going to go mental. No one's going to really get upset about it. I don't think. I might be wrong. People listen to this might disagree. The minimum aim is to be a solid, competing top half team who will push for a playoff place every year. But we know it's a dogfight. We know it's difficult. The hope is to get into the Championship in years to come. We've been there before. We've been promoted twice out of this league. We know how to do it. Right now, with Darren Moore in charge, with some of the players we've got, I feel we've got as good a chance as we've had for the last decade to do it. And then it's, then who knows? But yeah, it's kind of high expectations, but not unrealistic, I don't think.
Yeah, no, that sounds exactly as I would have described it, truth be told. Onto a team that's, God knows where our expectations are. I think we all want to be out this league. We're all done with it. But at the same time, we all, I think, realistically know our team's probably not good enough. It's an interesting question. It's getting more interesting season on season. But what are your thoughts on Sunderland in League One and kind of how much, realistically, we've struggled to mount a serious challenge for automatic promotion, let alone not even the playoffs last year? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, as you know, I live in Newcastle, so I live in the northeast. I work with a couple of Sunderland fans, and they're not very optimistic people. To be honest, I don't really blame you for that. So I do keep a keen, close eye on it, especially with how the media reports around here. I mean, it's a pessimistic area in general because obviously Newcastle always think they want better for themselves as well. I think I'm not surprised that Sunderland have struggled to get back out of the league. We've seen this with clubs of comparable size before. Leeds spent 4 or 5 years down here. Sheffield United spent 6 years in this league and really most of the time were really underwhelming, in my opinion. And they're now, I mean, they're both in the Premier League again now, so it can soon turn around. I think in this league, you have to find the right mix of knowledge of the division, getting players in who are really experienced at this level and are functional, and having the quality that surpasses the level. I don't know if Sunderland have got the balance right on that front yet, playing wise. Looking at the squad, there's certainly some very good elements, but there's not many that really stand out to me, to be
No,
honest.
there's not.
You want a few players for a team like Sunderland, I think, who will be championship ready if you get promoted. I'm not seeing a lot of that in Sunderland's squad from my view. The other big thing, which I'm sure you'll agree, is the management and the ownership, which makes a huge difference. It's mainly that's the reason that clubs like Sunderland end up in this league, end up in this problem. For me, you need to get the right manager, not necessarily a manager who has been around the level and has been here for years, because sometimes they get set in those ways with smaller clubs. Don't know if that's the case for Phil Parkinson or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Something's not right with them.
Yeah, sometimes these managers who've been at League One and League Two level for years and years on end kind of get set in their ways, and I think don't really think about how to approach it from the perspective of being the big club, kind of punching below their weight, and kind of treat being Sunderland manager like they are still at Colchester or, Simon Grayson when he was manager for that brief time. It looked to me like he was managing the team like he was still managing Bradford or Huddersfield. I didn't really understand the philosophy with that. And I think that's where it goes wrong as well. As long as you've got the investment from the ownership and, if the manager knows what he's doing, you'll get out the league because you've got the resource. You should be able to attract the players. So it takes incompetence of a big scale, in my opinion, either in terms of management, coaching, or recruitment, to cause teams like Sunderland to stay down for more than 1 or 2 years.
You summed that up perfectly, mate. You can definitely tell that you're closer to Sunderland than most because you've just summed it up perfectly. I couldn't agree more. The next question, whenever I asked this over the past year and a half prior to last December, the answer would always be Aidan McGeady, and it probably still could be if he had half a chance of playing on Saturday, which obviously he doesn't at the moment. But which players at Sunderland do you admire or fear? Where do you think we could damage you? And I agree with you. I don't think we're a remarkable side at all, but there's 1 or 2 half decent players there. Who's the ones that concern you, if any?
I like Lyndon Gooch. I like him quite a lot. He played here on loan back when Sunderland were in the Premier League.
Oh, he did.
I think Darren Ferguson maybe played him injured a lot of the time he was here, so we didn't get the best of him. I know he was only young. But ever since then, I've followed him or tried to keep a close eye on his career. And to me, he's progressed very well. I think he's been one of those players who's benefited from the team falling down the levels. He's had his chance and he's taken it. He's a threatening player and he always seems to play well against us. He's got an eye for goal. He can cause problems for defenders and midfielders. So I like him. I really like Luke O'Nien as well. Luke O'Nien had a really good game at the Stadium of Light against us last season. A lot of Sunderland's attacking play came down that flank with him to the byline, caught him back, getting in amongst it. Really impressed with him. To be honest, beyond that, there's not a lot of players to me that I look at and go, wow, I wish they were in my team. Wish they were in the Rovers team. There's really not a lot. Defensively, every time I watch a Sunderland game, every time you come up against us, it looks a bit shaky. It looks a bit rudimentary. And again, I think it's a case of having players in your team that maybe are more bogged down in this level than above it, so to speak. I wouldn't swap Tom Anderson for any Sunderland defender, for instance. But Gooch, 09. Maguire as well. He always surprises me, Chris Maguire, because on paper I always look at him and think, I'm not that worried. But then he plays and he seems to have just a couple of chances that you think, wow, how's he got into them positions? How's he done that? Or he finishes a chance that I don't think he should finish, but he does. So he's got a bit of that surprise factor, I suppose, in him, more than I would expect. But
depends on the mood he's in, I think, with Chris Maguire. Unfortunately, he's not been in the mood for a few weeks. So you might get the Maguire you're half expecting as opposed to not expecting this
maybe
time.
So.
Hopefully he makes me eat my words, but there you go.
But yeah, I mean, Charlie White's obviously had a really good start to this season, which has come out of nowhere, seemingly to me. I mean, I think he's already matched or bettered last season's goal tally, hasn't he? So
he's on 5 or something like that, I think. Yeah, he's done all right.
So it's not a bad effort for a player that, to me, when he was at Carlisle, looked like he could go on and be a really good player. I think when you're young and you're scoring goals, if you've got the physicality, you think, wow, that guy, he could really push on and be a top-level player. It's not quite happened for him. I think people thought he'd maybe do a bit better when he went to Sunderland, but he's in form now. And if whatever's working there is working for him, if he keeps that going, he's going to be hard to live with because he's got the physical presence. I'll be really interested to see how he does up against Tom Anderson and Joe Wright on Saturday. Actually,
he's our best striker, but it's not a mean feat right at the minute with Will Grigg and Danny Graham being his league competitors. But on a serious note, I think it's easy to say, but he's had his first pre-season in him, as much as it's been a weird one since he's been here. So maybe it's just that. But he's looked, if not a world beater, he looks like he can score goals or lay them off these days, which is nice. But I'm very much in the same opinion of you. I don't think we're that much of a great side outside of a couple of players on their day. But I'm going to try and be positive going into Saturday's game, and I'm going to try and take us for a 1-0 win, because right when I'm least expecting Sunderland to do all right, we end up doing okay, much like Doncaster last year, which many of us really enjoyed. But what's your predictions for Saturday, just to finish off?
I think it's going to be difficult for us to win the game. I guess we've been very Jekyll and Hyde against Sunderland. I've watched 4 games now between the two sides over the last couple of years. Sometimes we've stepped up, sometimes we've crumbled a bit. I think we looked intimidated when we played the season before last at Stadium of Light, lost 2-0. Was it Maguire? No,
McLeod. It was Morgan.
Yes.
Charlie White. Friday night game. Another Friday. Easter Friday, I think it was. Good day.
Yeah, so Friday afternoon, that one. Yeah, I remember. Was it Morgan that he scored a cracking goal? But we kind of went into our shells in that one, and I think we did a bit in the Christmas game at the Keepmoat last season. But then in the return game in January, we really stood up and showed no fear. I think if we come out and tell ourselves, it might be easy with no fans as well. If we come out and tell ourselves Sunderland are just another side in League One, we've beaten Ipswich, we've beaten Lincoln, we've beaten Portsmouth and Charlton. I think if we have the right mentality, we can give it a go. And I like to think we can win the game, but I'm not going to nail my colours to the mast and say we're going to win in 3-0. And no, I don't think so. I think it'll be tough. I normally hedge my bets with predictions and go for a draw, but I think we've got enough quality to beat Sunderland. It's just whether we turn up on the day.
Yeah. Adam, thanks so much for popping on as always. Nice to finally chat for the first time officially for the internet. But
I know.
But good luck for this evening. Appreciate you coming on, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. It's been great to be on.